Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our mid-legislative session webinar. Just to give you all an update, we'll just take a minute or two just to let the system kind of work in and let everyone join in. We've got a good crowd tonight and just appreciate everyone spending some time with us this evening. Just so you all know, if you have folks that have asked, we are recording this. And so this will be available if folks want to go back and rewatch it, or if folks missed it and would like to watch it, we can certainly get that out to people. Actually, that'll be emailed out to everyone who was on our list. So just appreciate everyone jumping on. And President McCarg actually wanted to be on, but he's out in Johnson County at the moment doing an event there, and so he's unable to jump on today. But certainly extend his wishes, and he's certainly been very active, traveling the countryside, traveling the state, really being very active on a whole host of issues and trying to represent you all to those decision makers who we need to speak with, always to try to represent the policy positions that you all vote on. So just again, welcome and looking forward to chatting with everyone this evening. We're going to start off. We're going to try to keep this to right at 30 minutes. I'd like to keep it that way, so we'll try not to take up all of that time. We'll leave some time for questions. You can unmute yourself, I believe, Jay. Jay will kind of talk through that real fast once we get to the Q&A portion as to how to answer those ask those questions, and we'll make sure that you all have an opportunity to do that. So enough from me. We're going to start on the state side first, given that it's mid-session, given the federal side never has a beginning or an end, it seems. We'll just keep it on the state side for a little while to start with, and we'll go from there. Bruce, go right ahead.
Okay, thank you, Jordan, and welcome everyone. It's great to have you online to hear what we can share with you, and also we'll do our best to respond to questions. So we are almost 2/3 of the way through the legislative session. Today was day 58. It's a 90-day session. They convened in early January, and they're scheduled to adjourn June 9th. And the one thing, and we'll talk about this in more detail, but the one thing that they absolutely have to do is pass a budget for the next biennium, which will begin July 1st of this year and go to June 30th of 2027. And so we'll talk about that in a little bit, but I'll just go ahead. We'll go to the next slide, Madison. So where we find ourselves early on in the legislative session was that leading up to it, when they convened, the state was projected to be $432 million short of the amount of money that they needed to have in the cash reserve to have a balanced budget. So what that means, what our Constitution requires, is that at least 3% of our annual budget has to be in the cash reserve when we begin the biennium and when we end. And since the budget's right at $6.5 billion, we need to have about $200 million in the cash reserve to start the biennium and end it. And we were $432 million short of that. So there's only two ways to fix it. We either have to cut spending or we have to increase revenue. And right now, where we're at in the legislative process, the budget itself has to be presented by the Appropriations Committee to the entire body on day 70 of the legislative session, which is April 29th. And then they have to pass it. It has to go through all three stages of debate, general file, select file, and final reading, and be presented to the governor by day 80. So that's going to eat up a good portion of those 10 days. There'll be some few other things that are debated while the bills are laying over. There's three major bills that account for the budget, but before they can start the debate, the Appropriations Committee has to present a balanced budget. And since the Appropriations Committee cannot generate revenue to help balance the budget. The Appropriations Committee has to make the necessary cuts in various programs. And we'll talk about that shortly. But right now, we're entering the phase where they're going to talk about revenue generating bills. And we visited with several senators today, interviewed them for various reasons that we're going to be using to help educate our members more about what's going on in the legislature. But all 6 of the senators that we visited with, and I'm very happy that they were saying this, but they said that they are opposed to generating any new revenue unless every one of those dollars of new revenue goes to property tax relief. They're not interested in expanding the sales tax base or clawing back some incentives that were passed in the last 2 or 3 years, unless that goes to property tax relief. So what they intend, or what they intend to see happen, is that the Appropriations Committee is going to have to come up with the projected shortfall the deficit that we have from our required cash reserve. Since early in the year, that number went from $432 million being short to approximately $300 million. There were some changes in the economy, probably more complexity than we need to go into during this particular webinar. But and the forecasting board met and estimated that our revenue projections were about $160 million better than what they had anticipated. So when everything was factored in, we're still looking at they have to come up with $300 million to meet the required cash reserve. When we're talking about the revenue generating bills, and we expect to see these coming up this week, I'll take a moment to say that we hope that you've seen our action alert that we've sent out last Saturday morning, encouraging our members to contact their senators and tell them that they need to push for property tax relief. Property taxes are still going up $285 million per year. We still contend that there was a missing tax credit that came to be through the special session last year. But most, including the chairman of the Revenue Committee, have said that they're not going to deal with that issue because we're already short money. So what we're pushing for is, well, okay, if that's the way you're going to play ball, then you still have to come up with the projected property tax relief that the governor had in his proposed budget recommendations that he delivered to the legislature back in January when he gave the State of the State speech. And at that time, he called for $302 million of property tax relief in the first year of the next biennium and $370 million in the second year of the biennium. That we'd still lose a little bit of ground because property taxes are going up $285 million per year. But that's what he had in his budget proposal to deliver in the way of property tax relief. So Senator Brandt has a bill that would eliminate about 20 sales and use tax exemptions, mostly on services. They've kind of dubbed it a luxury tax. Most of those services, as you can see what we listed, are charter flights, tattoos, dating services. None of those are necessities of life. So they went through and identified several exemptions that could be made or eliminate the sales tax exemption. They're also proposing to increase the cigarette tax. The amendment's still in the works there, but they would increase the cigarette tax from 64 cents to $1.36. Between all of the things that they have in that bill, it would generate $82 million. If we get our way, that would go to property tax relief. The same sort of scenario is in LB 170. Senator Brandt prioritized one of these bills. Senator Dave Merman prioritized the other one. And if you don't have a priority designation, you're probably not going to see the light of day for the rest of this session unless you can get attached to a bill that has a priority. But eliminating the sales tax exemption for candy and soft drinks would generate 42 million. Senator Hughes has a bill that's out of committee that would change the sales tax on electronic nicotine delivery systems, which would generate about 135 million. Right there, roughly, that's 160 million. And then go ahead, Madison. A couple other bills. I've talked about the budget. So Senator Arch, Speaker of the Legislature, prioritized the mainline budget. As I said before, there's 3 bills that it takes to pass to do the whole budget. And I already talked about the property tax relief that it would call for in that. Embedded in that in 264, or actually in the governor's budget proposal, was the elimination of certain sales tax exemptions and income tax provisions related to non-resident income and other credits. Basically, what this bill does is it claws back some of the appropriations and some of the incentives that were created over the last 2 or 3 years. If you're familiar with LIFO, which is last in, first out, the governor's office went through and looked at these programs. Some of them haven't been utilized to the full extent that they've been appropriated money to. And so they're clawing some of those things back. And that's the proposal in that particular bill. All of the things that they do in that bill would generate $88 million in the first year and $132 million in the second year. So there are some revenue generators. This one, I'm sure that there's going to be a tussle in the Revenue Committee as to whether or not this is new tax revenue or whether it, since they're clawing back some things, whether I'm sure that Senator Von Gillern will argue that this needs to go to balance the budget. But we're hoping that our troops stand strong to make sure that this would go to property tax relief. And still put the pressure on the Appropriations Committee to balance the budget. Okay, Madison. School funding reform. Right now, this is a good bill. It looks like LB 9, which was in the special session. Senator Hughes came back with it, working with the governor and many folks on this. It would increase foundation aid by 6% from $1,500 to $1,590 per student. It would also reduce the maximum levy lid from $1.05 to, 105% to 103% of valuations. And it creates a school finance reform commission. We're still pushing hard to get this bill out of committee. It's been prioritized by Senator Hughes, but we got some work to do to get some things that we want out of the Education Committee, get them out of there and onto the floor. And folks, we're already counting the hours, not because we're wishing the session is over, but we're counting the hours as to how many priority bills the legislature can actually deal with between now and the end of the session. I don't know the exact number right now. It depends on late nights. But we could be looking at somewhere in the neighborhood if we only have 320 hours or 325 hours of debate left, unless we go to really late nights. And there's way too many bills prioritized for us to be able to get through all of that. Okay, next one. And this is one of those bills that we're still trying to get out of committee. We can talk about things other than just property taxes and revenue, things like that. But Senator Storr from Cherry County introduced this bill on our behalf, which would streamline the process for livestock zoning applications, the conditional use applications. so that there would be a fixed time that the counties have to deal with this, roughly 120 days or better for the Planning and Zoning Commission, another 120 days for the actual board. And there would be a requirement that they have to make decisions based 100% on their zoning regulations. And the only way that they could deny it is if they have a finding of fact that proves that the applicant either has not adequately operated the facilities like it in the past or something like that. So we're trying to raise that bar. Hopefully by the end of this week, we can get it voted out of committee and still hook it to the committee priority bill. Yeah, those are the things that we do when we're putting these things together, and it's that making sausage type thing. But we're still working on that to streamline that. And then the last thing I'll talk about is the paid sick leave. That bill, championed by Senator Bo Ballard from Northwest Lincoln area, Lancaster County. This this puts into statute what was passed on the ballot last year during the general election, creating the Nebraska Healthy Families and Workplace Act. Gives quite a few definitions, or it clarifies the definition of employee and employer. We were fortunate to have Senator Stroman from out west that got his bill amended to this, that helped do a lot of things for ag producers where it exempts employers of less than 11 people, so 10 or less, temporary employees, seasonal agricultural employment, those sorts of things. So Senator Stroman and Senator Ballard were very amenable to helping us put all of that together. And it's on select file. We want to make sure that it makes it all the way to the governor's desk. And so when it's getting ready for debate on select file, we'll be reaching out to all of you to help make sure that your senators know that we need to get this passed. So with that, Jordan, I'm going to wrap up there and turn it over to you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Bruce. And I think we'll leave time at the end here for questions. Appreciate that update. I am going to share my screen now, and we'll see if I can get this going here. All right. Excellent. Hopefully everyone can see that. Just really, as everyone knows, everything in DC is extremely busy, and President Trump has really hit the ground running and certainly has been extraordinarily active. We had the opportunity, a group of Farm Bureau members, kind of a good mix. We've kind of mixed up our DC lobbying trips a little bit, and mixed in some board members, wife and our committee members, as well as a Leadership Academy participant or two. And I had the opportunity to go a couple weeks ago, and in talking with some members of our delegation, they still very much so a lot of support for the president and the things that he's doing. At the same time, I think folks indicated that if he took a week off, they'd be okay with that too, just to catch their breath and get caught up on everything the administration is working on. But I think the best place to start in this conversation, and my slides are a little bare, and I apologize for that if you were looking for really in-depth slides here. But really to start things off is going to be the tariff conversation. And I think it is no secret to anyone on here that this is the news of the day. The president started everything, I think, for his first, really on day one. On January 20th, he issued an executive order asking many branches of the federal government, many pieces of the executive agencies of the Department of Commerce, Agriculture, et cetera, to go through and go through our trading relationships with our trading partners, and then work through. He actually just released that report recently, but right away we had the dispute with Canada and Mexico. The president issuing tariffs on Canada and Mexico. Those were on, those were off, and then we settled on the current, which is that products that are subject to USMCA are coming into the country tariff free, but we do have a 25% tariff on basically everything else. We have the tariffs on steel and aluminum imports, and so those came back. Those have led to some retaliatory tariffs. We have seen domestic steel producers work to raise their prices just a little bit and put it just under the tariff limit, so just under what imported product would be. So companies are there, but that was round one. Round two, we saw the reciprocal tariffs, and that is the big one for the past week or so. The president issued those tariffs and had a series of charts that he released that compared what our new tariff rate would be compared to what other countries, according to the president, put a tariff on our products. Now, there was an admission that there were other things that made up that number, and as best as what everyone could see, I think it's important to lay out for folks that the number that the president and the White House laid out was not the average of tariffs across the board. When the president looked at and held those charts up, that was not the average tariff that each country charges U.S. products. What that was the number, the best that anyone could come up with was that was the trade deficit divided by the amount or the total value of exports coming into the United States from that country. So you take the difference between U.S. imports into that country and exports into the United States. That's your trade deficit number. They divided that by the export number of product coming into the United States from that country, and that came up with the percentage they were at. And then the president just divided that, the White House divided that in half. And that was our new tariff rate for countries around the world. And the president indicated the reason they did every country is because he didn't want folks slipping past and trying to move product one direction or another. So that is where we're at. The question of what we're trying to figure out in our conversations in American Farm Bureau in D.C. We're just meeting with folks from the White House. They were at the White House. President Duval was at the White House this morning. And the question is this a negotiation, or is this the new normal? And are tariffs and these percentages, are they as permanent as what a president can make something? So that is what we're trying to figure out. I think that's what everyone's trying to figure out. You've seen market reaction both in terms of Wall Street and also commodity markets have reacted to this, and so we're watching very closely. We're in communications with the administration, and everyone's kind of asking the same thing, and everyone's asking what's next. Is there going to be a round three? Is there going to be something else? We need to, our message to the White House continues to be that we know that there are trade barriers. We want to break those down. We also want this administration to start talking about new trade deals. We want them to start talking about market access. And so those are things that we have been talking about. And we certainly hope the White House gets there and gets there relatively soon. The next chart we have up here, it's just a continuation of a chart. This came from a House Republican conference that they came up with back at the beginning of the year, and they laid out what they plan to do moving forward. I did some altering of this one to keep it up to date, to show what they've accomplished. Everything struck out is in red. They've accomplished that, or we're past that month, and so we still have reconciliation we still need to contend with. We still need to get it through committee. We still have to get it on the floor. We still have appropriations bills for next fiscal year to work through. We still have the debt ceiling to contend with. And there's a lot going on there that is still up in the air. And I'll get to that in just a second when it comes to what this means maybe for a farm bill and taxes. But I wanted to real quick remind everyone that $10 billion of economic assistance that made their way to everyone's mailboxes. You should have gotten a letter from USDA on that. If not, you can visit your local FSA office. Those payments were made within the 90 days. That's my crude green check mark to show that was accomplished. But those payments, again, were paid on 2024 planted acres. If you have pre-event, it was 50%. And Nebraska was one of the top states updates. Here's your commodity specific numbers. This is what the USDA offered in terms of payment. They did have a payment reduction factor in there just to make sure they had enough money to go around. There is a possibility that producers may get a second payment, but that is yet to be seen. And we're still waiting on what the program looks like for the $21 billion in weather-related disaster assistance. And that would include droughts and wildfires and floods and excessive heat and tornadoes and some of the things that we experienced, not just North Carolina. And I know a lot of people think of the North Carolina disaster as what this was targeted to. No, it was disasters in 23 and 24. $2 billion of that was sent for livestock. And then the idea is you're going to get if you have crop insurance, you'll get a 90% revenue coverage protection for that. I want to hit on the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act really fast. This is what's at stake, folks. This is why we're talking about it. Individual income tax rate reductions, those are gone if Congress does nothing by the end of the year. The double to state tax exemption and the lower rate, that's gone if Congress does nothing. Bonus depreciation has already started to decrease. Section 179 small business expensing, Section 199A. All of that is gone if Congress does nothing by the end of the year. We will be unveiling a campaign here in the next couple of weeks. Please pay attention to that one. And then the last one I have is a farm bill. We don't know when they're going to talk about it. I showed you that list of things Congress has yet to do. We're already behind on some of those things. So when? I don't know. Probably sometime after the August recess. What's going to be in it? That's a good question. The House Farm Bill is probably the blueprint from where they're going to start from, and we'll see what happens from there. Farm Bill titles getting added to reconciliation. We were on a call today, and it seems that is a very strong possibility that we will get some reconciliation, that maybe Title I changes get thrown into reconciliation. Anything that has a budgetary impact may get thrown into that reconciliation package. So we may kind of piecemeal this Farm Bill a little bit. We'll just have to wait and see. And then the possibility of other aid payments. If we get to a point where the Secretary wants to issue some level of disaster payments because of the trade disruptions, is that going to impact our budget? Is that going to impact the Farm Bill baseline? We'll have to see what that means. And then lastly, again, the reminder, we need you folks. We need everyone to be involved and ask questions to Bruce and I. We'll go a little bit longer tonight just because I want to make sure we have a couple minutes for questions. But we need you. We need you to engage in that action alert that we have. We have another opportunity here in a couple of weeks. Senator Ricketts is going to jump on a similar Zoom to this. We were going to have him on tonight, but it really didn't quite work out in terms of his schedule, but he wants to jump on and talk a little bit about some of the things that they're working on from an EPA standpoint and all the other things that are happening that he's been very involved in. And so we have the opportunity here to have another conversation at 7 p.m. on April 30th to have a direct one-on-one conversation with Senator Ricketts, and we want to tell you about that. But a lot of ways to get involved in our policy process, a lot of ways to get involved in all the things that we do from an advocacy standpoint, from a lobbying standpoint, from an issue standpoint, and we're just looking forward to you all's involvement and anything we can do to try to answer your questions. So I talked too long already. Fire away. What do we have for questions? What can we answer? Like I said, we'll go just a couple minutes longer tonight just because we want to get to some questions. But stateside, federal side, what are some questions folks have, and what can we do to try to answer those?
There, can you hear me?
We can hear
We
you.
sure can.
All right. So I wasn't catching things really quick as I should have, but going back on the Nebraska legislature, that bill that is would be regulating or putting some regulations and policy onto the zoning for the counties and so on as to how quickly they have to run through their changes and so on. If I'm understanding this right, is that bill that Storer that was doing it?
Yes, it's
Okay.
it's LB 663. And
Okay.
so if I'll give you just a little bit more detail because I kind of flew through that one pretty quick, Mike. So what happens is that when an applicant, if it's enacted the way it's written right now, when an applicant files an application for a conditional use permit, the county, the Planning and Zoning Commission has 30 days to decide whether or not the application is complete. If it's not complete, they have 10 days to tell the applicant what information still needs to be submitted to make it a complete application. Then the ball is in the applicant's court. If the applicant takes 2 months to produce that information, that doesn't count against the county for their timeline or anything like
Sure.
that. So once the applicant submits that information, the same process starts again, that the Planning and Zoning Commission has 30 days to again look at the information and decide whether or not it's a complete application. The county has complete control and will retain its complete control over its zoning regulations and also what they deem has to be part of a complete application. So they have complete control over that. Once they deem it to be complete, then the County Planning and Zoning Commission has 90 days to have their public hearing or hearings in that time period, if they so choose to have more than one, and to act upon everyone's concerns. If there are legitimate concerns about runoff or something like that, this does not preclude the county from investigating any and all such information that is presented to them. They can even go so far as to seek an outside opinion from the Department of Environment and Energy, things like that. So let's say that it goes through the process and the Planning and Zoning Commission vote to recommend approval. Then it goes to the county board, the whole same process, including deciding whether or not it's a complete application. They go through the whole thing again. If the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended denial of it, and they have to, it requires a presumption, rebuttable presumption, that the applicant will live by and operate the facility by all local, state, and federal rules. Nothing in this precludes a county. If, let's say, the whole thing is permitted and it's built and it's operated and the applicant is out of bounds, has violated some local, state, or federal rule or regulation, the county still has the ability to pull that conditional use permit. But the bill just requires them to make a decision in that time frame. So, it's close to a year. If it got extended all the way, it doesn't have to last that long. But one of our contentions is that, time is money too. And an applicant is going to spend quite a bit of money to try and build these facilities. And so out of fairness, not only to the opponents and proponents, but the applicant themselves, this is what we're proposing, because we've seen some of these take 14 or 15 months or longer. And we just, we've had enough members ask us to do this, that we're trying to streamline it, but still be responsible to all interests in the process.
Thanks, Bruce. I did see we did have another couple questions in the chat box here. We did have a question wanting to know if Israel was an active trading partner with the United States. They are, from an ag side of things, they're not major, but we exported around $488 million worth of ag products to Israel, making them our 40th largest market at this time. So I just want to make sure folks saw that question. I answered that one in the text box there. Also, Bruce, we have a quick update on the RFID tag bill that are sourced from foreign adversaries, LB 655. Wanted a quick update on that one real fast.
Okay, that one is still in committee. Senator Storr is trying to scale it back to at least get it advanced out of committee to make sure that we have a discussion about it during the interim. I think, I don't want to speak for her, but I think she realizes that there's some work that needs to be done there. So I, for one, don't think that it will come to anything other than possibly an interim study where we can look at things in more depth and how we handle the information associated with the RFID tags. So that one, it's a pretty safe bet, at least from my perspective, that that one's going to stay in committee for the time being, and that hopefully, that we can work with Senator Storr to figure out where that needs to be before next session.
Okay, we did have another question on the status of the brand bill.
The status of the brand bill. It seems like there's a theme here. Senator Storr and Senator Teresa Ibaugh have somewhat squared off on that one. Through various iterations of the bill that was introduced by Teresa Ibaugh. First, it would have exempted registered feedlots completely from the Brand Act. Then there was an amendment that Senator Ibaugh offered that would require a one-time fee of $500 for the feedlots, but they would still be in the Brand Act. And then on March 27th, she offered another amendment shortly before the debate started, a day or two before the debate started, that it would have been a flat fee of $1,000 for the application and then $1,000 renewal. After 5 hours of debate, Senator Ibaugh realized that she didn't have the votes to pass it, but I believe in a good faith effort to keep the discussion alive, she agreed and said this on the microphone as she was closing on the bill, that she asked the senators to advance it to select file so that she and Senator Storr could work out the differences and hopefully come to a space where they could agree on what needs to be done. And so Senator Ibaugh said that she's amenable to revisiting the fee schedule. We have proposed that they still keep some sort of graduated fee schedule for the feedlots. Where that's going to land yet, I don't know. So there's that. Senator Storr and others had several technical concerns with the bill, especially when it comes to the definition of affiliated grow yards and lots, things like that, and how cattle would be or would not be inspected if they come from outside the brand area through an affiliated feedlot. So there are some technical things that need to be worked out. And the last thing that Senator Ibaugh said on the mic before they took the vote was that she agreed that she would not ask the speaker to schedule this for debate again this session unless she and Tanya could work things out. So Senator Storr has been working with several folks from the Brand Committee and others to figure out if there is the potential of working this out yet this session. I've talked to her several times over the weekend and again yesterday and today. She's seriously doing her work to figure this out. But whether or not that bill moves in this session, it's going to take a lot of work to get both of those senators on the same page.
All right, Mike Dvorak, do you have a follow-up question? Your hand is back up. I just want to ask that question.
You need to unmute your mic again, Mike.
Yep.
Okay, you there?
Yep.
Okay, it's a follow-up on that LB 663. And I was just wondering, we've got some stuff happening here in Colfax County. And I think what the zoning board and the commissioners are working on, or the zoning board first, is to come up with a plan on how to handle wind farms. Uh, so we've got that coming in. But I was wondering on this LB 663, who are the lobbyists, do you know, that are behind this bill?
Yeah, primarily it would be, I mean, we helped write it, Mike.
Okay.
You know, and we had, I don't want to say a similar bill, but there was a bill last year that, by my own admission, it wasn't ready for prime time and it kind of took a beating. But you know, we've helped put this together. Folks from AFAN, the Dairy Association, the State Dairy Association, pork producers, folks in the poultry industry. There are several entities that are looking at streamlining the process for the citing livestock buildings of those natures. So those are the lobbyists that are primarily behind it.
Okay.
Yep. And if you have thoughts about how to make it better, please get a hold of me because, you know,
Well, yeah, if you can hear me, I don't at this point. We've just we're having to do some writing of our zoning because I was a commissioner when we redid did a major rewrite on our zoning, and I know we dealt with wind farms or wind generators, but not in the commercial scale that we're looking at today. So I'm just kind of researching. Thank
Yep.
you.
And I've had conversations with other counties that have zoning regulations for livestock facilities, but they're still wrestling with what they're going to do with the regulations for renewable energy, especially wind and solar. You know, each county is still in charge of their regulations, rules and regulations, and you can have different rules and regulations for livestock facilities versus renewable fuels.
Right. And that therein lies the debate locally on how to sort through that.
Yeah, we've had people ask is like, well, if we do this, does this mean we have to do it for solar? And the answer is no. Or,
Right.
or wind. That's,
Sure.
you know,
All
that's
right,
your,
thank you.
you bet.
Maybe we'll wrap it up. As always, I know that Bruce, myself, any member of the public policy team are more than happy to answer any questions that folks have at any time. Feel free to email us, call us anytime. We're more than happy to chat with you about anything happening at the state or the federal level. Just certainly appreciate everyone jumping on tonight and appreciate the conversation. We will leave it at that. Thanks, everyone, and have a great evening.